Okay, so when we're starting today with this square lesson, squares and square roots, we have to have all of our stuff memorized. Let's write it at the top. So 1 squared value, 1, 2 squared, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49, 64, 81, 100. Can we go 2 more? 121, 144. That's good. 169, 196.
No, we got 186. Oh, what is it?
Yeah.
15 like 225.
Sounds right. Okay. That's memorized. Okay, those numbers should come quick into your head when we talk about squares. Okay, so this first question talks about a square and it talks about the area of a square. So often we talk about area as the length times the width, right? So you've probably seen something like that before. But on a square, so the length of this is 2.6 and the width of it is also 2.6. So specifically on a square, we are actually just taking the length of the side and squaring it. And so it's the same meaning, right? Length times width, the same number times the same number. That's the same process as just saying on a square, you're just squaring the side. Okay, and that's where it's coming from, length, width, but it's the same. Yeah, so this and this, right, that's the same thing. Okay, so the first part of this says, I want you to estimate this area, so we're having to figure out what 2.6 squared is. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. 2.6 squared should be less than 3 squared, right? Does that make sense? Less than 3 squared. So I know my area is going to be less than 9. And I should be bigger than 2 squared. Would that make sense? I'm bigger than 2 squared. So I'm bigger than 4. So this is an estimate. So where do you think you want to put 2.6? Somewhere between 4 and 9. Are you closer to a 4, maybe closer to a 9, kind of in the middle? 7. 5 would probably be too low because I would say I'm not that much closer to 2 than 3. Okay, like 2.6 is middle or just over, so maybe think middle to over halfway. So maybe 7 would be a good number. It's just an estimate, so you have to kind of be reasonable. Okay. When I'm working with area and here it tells me this is how many meters, what should I estimate 7 and how do I say stuff after that? Meters squared. Okay, now here after the estimate it says now calculate. So we're having to do this 2.6 times 2.6. See how close we are. See if we're a good guess. Okay, here we go. 6 times 6, 36. Your head, because this next one is 2 times 6, 12, 3 more. 15. Now we're going to jump over to this 2. So we've jumped over, so we jump over a place. 2 times 6, 12. 2 times 2, 4, and 1 more, 5. So how many decimals should I be in this final? I need to have 2 decimal places because I had 1 on this one and 1 on this one. So the actual area. We're pretty close. We're good guessers. Okay, same idea. We're going to do one more. So we had this same thing, a square. So it's a 4 by 4.4 times a 4.4. That's the area. So 4.4 squared. Okay, so I'm going to say it's going to be bigger than 4 squared. And it's going to be less than 5 squared. Which one do you want to lean towards? It's almost centered, right? Kind of, let's think. We're going to go maybe a little bit closer to the 16 side. What is halfway in there? Let me think of a halfway number. 17.5 would only be a little bit here, not quite halfway. I think 20.25.
Yeah.
Okay, 20.25 is halfway. Should we go estimate 20? Okay, and then did you notice I go millimeters squared? Okay, let's try the actual here. So 4.4 times 4.4. Okay, 4 times 4, 16. 4 times 4 and 1 more, 17. Okay, now jump to this 4. So I have to jump a place spot. 4 times 4, 16. Okay, so it actually ended up being the same number, right? Okay, so we get a 6, 13, 9, 1. Decimal position, 2. Look at that. Very close again. Okay. Okay, so we have this word we call perfect squares. So here's your examples of a perfect square. How should we define it?
Exactly.
A number that can be square rooted perfectly. So perfectly into a rational, we'll say. So it's something that when I square root it, it could be a whole number, it could be an integer, it could still be a fraction, it could still be a decimal. If it does what as a decimal? It would have to stop, right? Or repeat, like a 1/3. So again, we What's not perfect? It would be a decimal that would go on and on. Okay, so the opposite is decimals that would go on and on and on. So for example, the number 8, that's not perfect. So if I were to square root 8, it's going to end up on and on and on and on and on and on. So that's not a perfect square. Okay. Determine if this is going to be a perfect square. So it's a fraction, so to be a perfect square, you have to be able to do both. So can you do the square root of this perfectly? Is that a perfect square? Yes. So yes, you have to be able to do both. What is the square root of that? 5/7. Perfect. Because it would be a fraction, or it's a rational. Okay. Not a calculator question. Is this a perfect square? So tell me what that is as a fraction first. 25/100. Is that squareable? Is that squareable?
Yes. Nope.
Yes and yes. So yes, that is. So what is the square root of that? 5/10 or 1/2?
0.5. 1/2. I'm right.
Okay, C. We're not going to look decimal. We're going to go to that as a fraction. What is this as a fraction? 4/10 or 2/5. But we're going to look at 4/10. Square rootable? Yes. Square rootable? No. So no. They would both have to be, and it wasn't. So that would be a no. Okay, we have 3 numbers here. Let's decide. Yay or nay on the top? Yep. Yay. So yes. Should we do that one? What is the square of it? 11/8. Okay, I want this as a fraction. We're not doing decimals. What would you do here as a fraction? 1 and 2/10 or 1 and 1/5. Okay, so what do you think about it? No. I am not going to be able to square root that part. There's another way to look at it. 12/10. I could change it to 100. 120/100. No, no, no. Can't. Okay, and question C. 9 over which place value? 100. That one? Yes, yes. So that's a yes. Okay. The area is 1.44, and so I want to know the side length. So if the area is equal to side squared, what is S equal to? How do you get S alone? How do you get rid of the other stuff with S? How do you get rid of, I don't want this squared here because I just want side.
Divide S by S.
Dividing, it won't work. How do I undo this square? Square root it. So if I square root that and I square root that, the area is the side squared, the side is the area is square rooted. Opposite. Square, square root. Opposites, right? Okay, so this is what we want to know. That's what we want to know. And what we do know is this. So what's the square root of 12? Or, it's the answer is not 12, by the way. Okay, the square root of that is 12. Okay. No, I'm just tricking you. Because I gave you the answer before the question. Sometimes I do that. I'm already thinking about the answer. Okay, so this needs to have 2 decimals. So we're going to have 1 decimal and a 1 decimal to make 2 decimals in the final, right? 1.2. Does that make sense? Because we need 2 decimals, so we're going to have to split it to have 1 decimal and 1 decimal. Okay, so here we go. We want to know the square root of 0.16. We know that so how do we end up with 2 decimals? Dom? You put 1 decimal in the 4, because then if I do this squared, right, it makes my 2 decimal final, right? That's what my goal is, to get 2 decimals in that. So there's my answer. Okay. And the second question here. Nakuzi, you knew this one without your calculator. You said 15? Oh, sorry, he had answered it before when we were doing our big start there. 15 is that one. Okay, but we're going to change that so that our multiplication of 2 things makes 2 decimal places. So therefore, if we make a 1 decimal times a 1 decimal, we get to our 2. Okay, so it's all about playing with our decimals in that. Oh, we're on the last page. What? When did that happen? Okay, so this is the opposite that we talked about. So this time when we square root a number, it's going to be on and on. And something like this that goes on and on and on is irrational. Something that goes on and on and on without repetition, without stopping, that's called not rational, which the real term is called irrational. Okay? Everybody knows that their calculator like stops there because that's just as wide as the screen. But technically, these are still more numbers and numbers, okay? Okay, so estimating, so the square root of 0.73. So I'm going to know $73. Let's just talk about 73. That's not squareable, right? Not perfect. What's the lower number here? What's the perfect square you can find below it? Carter. 64 is a perfect square lower. Dom, what's a perfect square above it? 81. So there's a perfect square lower. So
leave them all over your roof and make sure that the smell is like chicken pot. I'll leave the oven and then melt them and underneath the oven. I know how to make chicken pot pie.
okay, so we went from our numbers just to our decimals. Yeah. Okay, so what's the perfect square root of that?
8.
Make that with a decimal.
0.8.
0.8. What's the perfect square root of that?
9.
Decimal? 0.9.
Got it right.
Okay, estimate. Which one are we leaning closer to? Are we kind of middle-ish? Which?
I think it'll be 0.86 something.
You're thinking 0.86-ish? Okay, should we check? Let's check. Ready? Square root, 0.73. Ooh, pretty close.
You're wrong. It's 0.855.
Estimate.
Why? I knew it was 0.55. 0.85. You didn't. Yeah, you were wrong. It wasn't 0.55.
Okay, so here you go. Calculate this. That is a calculator because you can't do, I'm not going to make you do that math. You don't even know how to do that. So 0.73, do you know how to use your square root? Do you have a button?
It's so easy on the sharp calculator.
So on this one, yeah, you wouldn't have any other tool for that.
It's so sharp, I'm going to cut myself.
Okay, but on your test, you're going to have to expect no calculator, so that'd be a lot of estimation stuff, right? Okay, let's go. Here we go. One more and then we're done.
Can I go to the washroom?
One more question? Okay. Okay, 34. Forget the decimal for a second. Not a perfect square. Can you get me something perfect that's below 34? 25. Can you get me a perfect square over here? 36.
I think it is 0.69 or 0.68, sorry.
No.
Okay. So 0.25, so that would be just a 0.5, and this one would be a 0.6. Are we middle-ish? Are we kind of leaning towards the 25 or the 36? I think we're closer to that. So what do you want to do? 0.5. I'm hearing a few. You can pick what you want, but
Yeah.
estimate? Okay. Don't peek and cheat. Now, once you've thought about it, what do we got? Square root, 0.34 to thousandths. Thousandths, because it said that, right? Thousandths. 3.
You just wrote one.